Right, so good morning. This is Brandon from NeoLab. Hello everyone. I've got Law with me and Mark behind the camera. We're putting together a quick little video to show you how to use the structure sensor on the iPad to scan a foot for optimizing scan and data so that we can start to design your orthotics. We've started with the iPad, the structure sensor already attached to the bracket. This is a really easy process. If yours isn't already attached, it requires 4 little screws which come with the bracket and the structure sensor. Once it's attached, it becomes a solid piece and it stays present. You will notice that the bracket has a hole on the one side closest to the structure sensor. That hole is designed to be for the camera, so it's really important to orient this correctly. It uses both the camera in the structure sensor and the camera of the iPad, and it creates a depth image which we can convert, or it can convert to a 3D image. You'll also notice that the bracket has a closed top and open at the bottom on both sides, and on the right side, which is behind my hand, it's a small little clip. So I'm going to keep that on my right side and keep, for your purposes, the hole on my left, your right, with the camera of the iPad on my left, the same position as the hole, so they line up. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that clip remains open and simply just slide this on top. So like so. Alright, it just sits in and it's pretty much perfect. You'll notice that the camera of the iPad sits through the hole quite perfectly. Next thing, we're going to make sure it locks in place. So to lock it in place, I'm going to make certain we open this little tab, create this little thing that sits at the back here, and then lock that in place. You would have heard that quite click. So now it's absolutely solid. It's not going to be able to fall off, which is really cool. Also important, we've already got our little wire attached, plugged into the structure sensor. So now we can go ahead and plug that into the iPad. What's important is that the orientation of this is such that the hole, which is also the charging hole, is on the right. So it works really seamlessly. It's quite a nice ergonomic design. If this were the other way around, stay on this side, that wouldn't reach because it would be looking for the attachment or the plug this side. So now we're ready to go ahead and turn it on. So you'll notice that the bracket has a little button that you can obviously push to be able to turn the iPad on, which is easy because obviously the bracket is covering the power button of the iPad. So once I've got it on, I'm going to literally swipe it on, put in my code, and I'm at my home screen. At this point, you're going to look for 2 icons. The most important one to not push is this calibrate one, which we've got usually here in the home screen. The calibrate one is only if you need to recalibrate the structure sensor. We'll have set that up for you, so that requires you not to do it. The one that you're going to look for is this one here at the bottom. You can't see that, but you can't see its writing, but that's 3D seismic. So I'm going to go ahead and touch that one, and you can see it. You saw it right in the beginning that it showed you the 3D seismic, and we're already in our home screen of the scanning app. This is how it looks. What's important is just to navigate yourself around here. You'll see on the top here toward the left, it says slide bar to reveal additional options. You'll also see your 3 menu ones. Those 2 are doing the same thing. If I touch that, I have a number of menu items. So settings, practitioners, very good if you have a locum or you have an associate in the practice. You can set them up so that when they use it, they can put their initials or name, so that later on we know who we need to speak to or who ordered what. Also, you can check your list of patients, change some of the settings as they need changing, etc. So this one brings that forward, and obviously I can move it back another way. So that button does the same thing as this. So let's get to scanning a patient. The first thing you can see is the list of patients. You can see the body images. This has been set up to scan the feet. But obviously you're going to start by scanning a new patient. So you can see in the bottom left here, it requires you to input new patient data. Of all the things that you need to put in, the most important is the name and surname. It will require the name and surname. Yeah, the last name, the first name and the last name. So I'm going to go ahead and just do test. So you see I've just tapped on first name. I'm going to write test, and surname, I'm going to write testee. So test and testee. Of course, there's no reason you can't put the email, you can't choose gender, there's no reason you can't put the practitioner date of birth, but this is really the information you require. At this point, I'm simply going to save information, and I've created my patient. You'll also notice that suddenly I've got an individual figure sitting here, and the feet are circled. Bearing in mind this app is designed for feet. So I'm going to touch either of the 2 feet, and you'll notice that I've got 2 options here. One looks like a phone box, one looks like a foot. We have Law's real feet here. We're all going blue. So we're going to quickly go ahead and touch the foot because that's what we're looking to do. And you'll see the start button becomes green. At this point, I'm ready to scan. So I'm going to now position my patient so that the scanning becomes easy, not just for me, but for her too, and to make sure that I'm able to get a correct volumetric representation of the foot. So at this point, I'm going to leave my thumb to the right, turn this around. I'm going to ask my patient to position themselves. So Law knows already what to do. So Law, we're going to put your right leg on the side of the chair here, and your left leg closest so you're comfortable. You see what I've asked Law to do is she's leaning with the leg down. You'll notice that her foot is neither plantar flexing or dorsiflexing. Her foot is neither inverting or everting. It's merely just hanging down. This position is otherwise known as a prone position. It's in a modified prone position because she's not lying on her tummy. You could, of course, keep your patient in supine, either sitting or lying down, but this position gives us the best opportunity to capture a foot that isn't either plantar flexing and inverting, which is typical for a supine position, and it works really nicely. But of course, bearing in mind, there's no hard and fast rule of how to do it. You'll see that I don't have to hold Law's foot in neutral. That we're going to correct from our side. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit start. It's going to initialize the structure sensor, as you can see. And you'll notice that in the screen, I have this very broad 3-dimensional box. Like we would normally minimize a screen, if I minimize that, you can see it better. And of course, I can maximize it depending on where I'm standing relative to the foot. Obviously, the measurements here are not necessarily for us, and I'm going to simply try and get Law's foot into the, let me get it into that, think of it as the last square, in other words, the one we're going to see through there. So I'm going to position myself down. The camera's going to follow me around my shoulder, and I'm going to get to the level of the foot. And I'm just going to try and increase the box so I've get the whole foot into that square. Of course, if I was further, the box needn't be so big. If I was closer, it needn't be so small. But really, you see, if I'm not in the box, I'm not capturing the whole foot. If the foot isn't in the box, it's not capturing the whole foot. You can see quite nicely how the structure sensor and the camera working together as depth are able to see and identify the foot. So I'm going to increase that. Just let's go like this, increase that, and try and get that box into, try and get that image into the foot. Oh, let's start again. No. So what I did quickly, just to show you, this button, I pushed start by mistake. So you can see I've got a reset button. So if I hit that reset, I'm back to where I started. So there's no reason why you can't delete what you've got. There is my, there we go. So it just requires the box to be slightly bigger. So I've got the whole foot in my box. So I'm going to hit start and I'm going to move around. My path, my action is, so before I start, I'm going to move around to capture that foot. So the camera is just going to follow me around, but we can also show you what it's like when we come to the end. I like to start here so I have a little bit of the lateral part of the foot. So if I hit start, you'll notice how the foot turns almost like a plaster cast. And that plaster cast, I'm going to try and keep the foot in the square. I'm going to move around, and hit done. Okay. So you'll see how easy that is, thank you, Law. That what we've done, we've captured a bit of the chair, and we've captured a foot, and now I can use my hand to swivel to see I've got a pretty accurate representation of a foot. A couple things to know. This piece that's missing, remember that was Law's Achilles tendon, so we weren't above her foot. We could have moved it above, but really what we need is a good plantar, a little bit of lateral, a little bit of medial, certainly enough to capture her arch profile, which you can see we've got quite nicely, and I'm good to go. So I'm satisfied with that. A couple things that we can do here is, if you notice at the bottom over there, we have a number of options in the bottom left. I can take a photograph, I can make notes. So if I hit this, I can type a few notes. I can say patient was prone, maybe it was a kid, maybe we could say things like the foot remained inverted. It doesn't matter, I can get rid of that. But this little lollipop thing that you can see in the bottom left, if I touch that, I'm going to hold the foot, just increase the size. What I'm going to do now is find its points. I'm going to literally push and create 3 anatomical points that represent the first MPJ, the fifth MPJ, and the center part of the hill. And that's really what I'm looking to do, right? And move it back, and I can say done. All right, so that scan is now done and it's complete. Looking at Law's left foot. Of course, I can touch now to scan the right foot. I can also take a photograph of the foot if Law was remaining there, or if there's a mark on the foot that I wanted to show the lab, or a mark, say, to identify the plantar fascia, or a cuboid, or whatever it is. Let's take a photograph of Law's right foot once we've completed the scan. So Law, can you move the whole chair to the right slightly so I can get a little bit to your left side? So at this point, I'm going to touch the right. I'm going to position myself at the bottom over there. I'm going to get that box sized appropriately so I can see the foot. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to move my body around Law's foot to capture it. And Law, I'm going to keep you there for a sec to take a photo after it. So hit start. The foot turns into a plaster cast type appearance. I'm going to move around. And I'm going to hit done. Thank you, Law. So you can see I've got a little bit of the Law's other leg, and I've got the foot. I'm going to quickly check to see that foot represents a nice arch profile. It looks like it's okay. I'm not too worried. Of course, if I wanted to, I can hit reset and redo that. But the lab can work with this. And bearing in mind, any noise data like this, which is Law's other leg, the lab will be able to get rid of that for you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to increase the size like this to give me a nice working surface. I'm going to hit that little lollipop type thing at the bottom and make my marks, which is so important: base of first, base of fifth, and central heel. So I've got that, hit that lollipop again and hit done. So I'm good. Now what I want to do is take a photograph. So hit the camera, do the camera, and you can see I've got a photograph of Law's foot, which, let's go central. Here I don't have to move, just take a photograph of the foot. Thank you, Law, you can get dressed. And you can see how nice I can retake the photo or use photo. And this photo can go with the lab. A little bit of tools that I can mark. For example, I can, draw something on the foot to highlight something. You can get dressed, Law. Let me get you out the way. Or I can delete, or I can save, whatever it is I can do. So I'm going to proceed without saving just for demonstration purposes. So I have the picture of the left, of the right, scan of the right, scan of the left. And at this point, all I want to do is hit the order form. And you'll notice that you would have seen these forms. This is the prescription form. Everywhere we can see is this blue or gray. The name's already been populated. Also, obviously, I didn't tell the computer that Law was actually a female. Of course, I can change this. But here I have the prescription form. What really helps a lot if you increase the size and start typing. So account name would be the clinic or your practice name, or the clinic name. The clinician can be which practitioner did it. Phone, fax, or you even put an email if necessary for any reason why we might need to get hold of you for any reason. On this side would be the patient information. Obviously, I can change this now. I can definitely change that to a female, as you can see. I can now important to tell us shoe size, age, weight, and footwear type. So what we'll do, let's move across and show you how this works. So what's nice, if I just get rid of the keyboard, is on the orthotic style, if I wanted to say a sport performance or a standard, and what really works nicely if you make it as big as you can, and make sure, let's do a sport performance so it's out the way, and just make sure that you highlight or select just, let me just try and get this done properly, select just the block. My finger's slightly bigger, that's why I like to make it bigger. So I've gone with a sport performance, a little tricky. Once you get the hang of it, you've got the hang of it. Let's try and do that again. There. So you can see I've selected sport performance, I've selected blue, which will obviously be the top cover, and then keep moving down. Orthotic rigidity, so I can choose semi-rigid, I can choose a wide device, I want say moderate cast dressing, all right, and I want say a 16mm heel cup. If I want any posting, I can go extrinsic posting. I want both of them to be varus and varus, and let's say I want that to be neutral. So all I do is go neutral, and let's just argue to show you, and I want a 4 degrees on the other side. So you can see I want 4 degrees varus extrinsic posting on the right and neutral varus extrinsic neutral on the left. So I'll just take varus out. If, by the way, you had neutral and a 0 in varus, we'll make the assumption that that's in fact neutral. If you wanted heel skies or heel lifts, just simply select this one. Of course, as you can see, is heel skive left. I'm going to say 2 mils on one side and 2 mils on the other side. Move back to my prescription form and whatever it is that you want to carry on prescribing. Let's show you a couple things, and I'm going to be quite erratic just to show you. First mid cut out on one to the left, first ray cutout I want on the right, lateral flange left, medial flange right. It doesn't matter, because whatever you do, this is how we will see the prescription come through. If you want heel holes on both sides, no problem. I know that that's the bottom of this side of the prescription. I'm going to move to the top of the right. I'm going to magnify this to give me a nice working environment. Arch fill, remember on 3D orthotics, we don't require arch fill. You can, of course, request arch fill, but we're going to put arch prints. Let's say we want a full profile met pad, both left and right. And then let's say we want, it doesn't matter, whatever we want, heel cushion 116, left and right. We want to choose our top cover, so it doesn't matter what we choose. Let's go blue, green, and a 116. Bearing in mind, let us know what length you want. So full length. If you want extra cushioning, obviously that's you can have. Here we've got puff or pour-on, but if you chose something else, by all means, there's notes at the bottom that you can tell us. Bottom cover, let's go with Cordura. We're going to add a skid plate because there's a heel hole. And here's an interesting part right at the bottom, additional instructions. In here, anything that you want that isn't on the prescription, or any additional information that you feel is necessary, any clinical information that you feel is necessary, whatever you want, just simply select and start typing. So you can say hi, and to demonstrate, you can tell us to have a nice day. And that's also okay, we don't mind that. Also, if you wanted to highlight any parts of the foot that maybe you chose a meta compad, you wanted to select that that area is painful and this area is painful, maybe that references your notes, it doesn't matter. The bottom right, and that's it, then I'll show you what to do. Right at the bottom, the special order instructions. If you wanted it to be rushed, you just hit rushed, bearing in mind that it tracks a small fee. Date required is nice, that at least we know when we need to get it out. Helps us to make sure we manage our workflow. If in fact it's not a rush, but it's a repeat order, if you have the original order number, that helps us, but we can find the original order number from the name so long as the spelling in the name is okay. If you wanted this patient to have 2 pairs of orthotics, maybe you chose this to be a different prescription to the one before, we can see now that this prescription is filled out quite nicely. Now, if you have a look, you can see the options. I'm happy with what I've got. Bearing in mind, I didn't put clinic name. I haven't put clinician. That will be something that you'll do. Keep in mind that weight is so important, especially if you want 3D orthotics. If you give us weight and the type of rigidity you require in the device, that'll help us a lot to design the orthotic. This cross cancels this. That deletes it. This one looks like an old floppy disk, so I'm going to save this file. Order form saved, if you can see on this side. Oh, let me try that again. Order form saved, so I'm happy. Now you notice nothing happens, so I'll get rid of that. And now what you can see is I can send to the lab. So I'm going to see this button up here. It's a typical upload button. So once I've done everything, I can see my order form is populated on this side. Pictures taken, both scans are taken, all the patient's details. All I have to do is push this button, and if you look at the bottom, this goes yellow and it turns to green. That green means that this is successfully submitted on your side to the lab. The rest is for us to receive it, and then we can begin to process it. And that's simple. Once you've done this, it's so simple. All you can really do is go back to this screen. All I did was touch this. I can also go back to this arrow over here and go back to the patient list and start typing my new patient request when the next patient comes in, and go through the same process. It's just a logical, easy workflow that once you get the hang of it, really works. Just one thing to bear in mind, when you're not using this, keep this charged. This requires separate charge to the iPad. The iPad, at least, you know, you can always, if I go back to my home screen, I've got 100% power still, but it's not so easy to see how much charge you have left of the structure sensor. So this cable, if you just pull this out and put the cable that comes with it to charge in there and leave it plugged in, you'll ensure that you never have to run out of charge when you're about to scan your next patient. I hope that helps. Please reach out if you have any questions. My email address is online, but otherwise it's brandon.maggen, M-A-G-G-E-N, @leolab.ca. All right, good luck. Happy scanning.